Should we make dunks worth 3 points? I mean, it feels like a major change is coming to the NBA. Adam Silver has clearly been experimenting with ways to improve the league recently. Just look at the in-season tournament, or even the All-Star Game overhaul. Plus, the league is currently testing new rules in the G League, so they're clearly not slowing down anytime soon. Not everything has been received well, but who cares? They'll get over it. I mean, in 1979, when the three-point line was introduced, it wasn't exactly a hit right away and was viewed as a gimmick. So I'm gonna make sure we're more prepped than they were in 1979 for the next big change by taking things that have been rumored, putting them into tiers based on how realistic they are, and explaining why not only is everything going to be okay, but it might even be fun. Starting with a stupid but fun tier where we're gonna put 3-point dunks. Stay with me. For a period of time in North Korea, they used a lot of wild rules, like a bonus point for swishes, -1 point for a missed free throw, and 3 points for a dunk. And that last one is actually pretty interesting. It's even been thrown out there by Nick Wright.
Have a real conversation about, hey, dunks are also worth 3 now.
Let's look at Anthony Edwards, for example. He can do stuff like this. And yet this year he's averaging half as many dunks per game compared to last year. Why? Because he's shooting more threes. He's up to 10 a game this year. Players who can do things like this should probably be encouraged to do them more. Ja Morant shouldn't be saying he's done dunking, even if it was a complete lie. Scoring numbers wouldn't even be that messed up. With 3-point dunks, Edwards would have averaged 26.7 points per game last year instead of 25.9. Plus, if there were 3-point dunks, Edwards would have taken less threes, so it might have evened out the numbers anyway. We'd just get more of this. And if you think 3-point dunks are too crazy of an idea, just remember what former Warriors owner Franklin Muley said about the wild idea of a 3-point line in 1979. I simply do not want my name in the annals of the 22 small men in the summer of 1979 who had the audacity to change the game of basketball. Moving on to probably not, but maybe, we have shortening the season, which Adam Silver has actually talked about.
We're looking to create more meaningful games, more games of consequence over the course of the season.
But it's in the probably not tier because Silver started the in-season tournament as his way of creating games of consequence. Plus, the second half of that clip is
the way to do that, maybe not necessarily shorten the season.
So yeah, I doubt it. What about a 4-point line though? The Philippines Basketball Association actually just added a 4-point line. Believe it or not, the PBA is the second oldest pro basketball league in the world after the NBA, and they're now embracing this radical change. Their 4-point line is placed 27 feet away with the arc being cut off by the sidelines. Remember that for later. The PBA league average on 4-pointers has been 23.9% with teams shooting about 6 per game. Is it a cheat code? Not really. I mean, the top 4-point shooting team in the league is Magnolia, whose full name is the Magnolia Chicken Templados Hotshots, by the way, which is electric. They only made it to the first round of the playoffs. The top 4-point shooting player in the league is Jericho Misi, who shot 41.9% from 4, which is just under what Steph shoots from 25 to 29 feet. And he obviously wasn't a game breaker since he was on the Magnolia Chicken Templados Hotshots team that got bounced early in the playoffs. The 4-point line adds an exciting new feature to the game that brings new strategy. Plus, we've already seen it in the WNBA All-Star games, and believe it or not, many NBA teams have a 4-point line at practices. In fact, a bunch of NBA stars have already said they'd want a 4-point line.
I'd probably add a 4-point line for real.
I had a 4-point line.
I would add a 4-point line.
Makes sense that guards would want it since it creates more space for them, but another way to create space would be to, literally create more space. Making the court larger is where we start to get serious. It has been talked about since 1986 when Hall of Fame coach Don Nelson proposed adding length to the court, saying adding length would give fast break opportunities a better advantage. And while I love where Donnie's head is at, I was thinking more so widening the court. I mean, look how little room there is for corner threes. We'll circle back to that in a minute. Making the court wider would obviously increase spacing and therefore increase scoring. Plus, it would favor athleticism. And watching great athletes do great athletic things is kind of the most entertaining part of sports, isn't it? I mean, when you think of the evolution of these athletes over the past 80 years and the fact that the court has been the same 94 feet by 50 feet over all of those 80 years, it's pretty insane. It's in the serious tier because 10 years ago, NBA President of Basketball Operations Rod Thorne and Vice President Kiki Vandeweghe said in an interview that expanding the dimensions of the court were something the league office was discussing. So if it's been on their radar for 10 years already, who knows? It could happen. Okay, back to those corner threes. Let's get rid of them. For starters, the 3-point line at the top of the key is 23 feet 9 inches away from the basket, whereas corner threes are 22 feet away. A 2-foot difference is wild. So it makes sense that last year teams shot about 3% better on corner threes than above the break, and about 20% of all NBA jump shots are corner threes. That's way too high. But can you blame teams? The only way to bring that number down is to get rid of the corner three entirely. Remember how the PBA 4-point line cuts off at the sideline? We can just do that for NBA threes, instead of having the line take that weird sharp turn. It wouldn't even be the first time the NBA adjusted the 3-point line. In the mid-90s, the NBA moved the 3-point 3-point line in by 2 feet because they wanted to increase scoring. As a result, Michael Jordan went from shooting 30% from 3 to 40% with the shorter line. That's right, your GOAT played with a Mickey Mouse 3-point line. So the league has changed the line before, why not try it again? If it doesn't work, they can reverse it, like they did in 1997 when they put the line back to where it was. Or instead of just removing corner threes, they can move the entire line back. The WNBA, NCAA, and FIBA have all moved their lines back at some point. The NBA is the odd one out. You can even let teams draw their own 3-point line, an idea that basketball analytics writer Kirk Goldsberry came up with, where teams would be able to create a unique home court advantage for themselves by having a custom 3-point line that suits the way they play, similar to how all MLB fields have different dimensions and wall heights. The reason these are all in the serious tier is because of what Kirk himself says here.
I don't think I've ever shared this, but in 2019, after my book came out, Adam Silver had reached out to me and said, will you come present some of this stuff to the league? And we had suggested 2 different 3-point lines. One was to get rid of the corner 3 entirely. We were going to try it in the G League, Bill.
Speaking of G League testing, the changes that Adam Silver is probably already planning out are the ones he's testing in the G League right now. Like shooting 1 free throw worth the value of the foul. So 1 free throw worth 2 points for a foul inside the 3-point line, 1 worth 3 points beyond the 3-point line, you get it. In the G League, missed field goals in the last 3 seconds of quarters don't count towards a player's field goal percentages, so players are more encouraged to take heat. Rules that are tested in the G League actually do have a decent chance of making it into the NBA. For instance, the coaches challenge and the 14-second shot clock reset on offensive rebounds both started as G League test rules. So changes are very likely coming, and we should be excited for whatever they are. But if for some reason change still scares you, just remember what legendary St. John's coach Lou Carnesecca said about the newly introduced 3-point line in 1979. Quote, "I think some soccer guy came up with it."